So finally, we make our way over to Yuji as he sits alone and despondent on a large staircase. Choso approaches him and asks about his injuries, but Yuji says that he is fine because of Sukuna, but can also tell that he is growing stronger inside of him. Choso says that he will be fine by himself while he collects the remains of his other family members and tells Yuji that he can return to Jujutsu High. However, Yuji replies that Sukuna has something planned for Megami, and that he himself has killed too many people, which again reminds Choso of his murdered brothers. Calmly, he says that it was a misunderstanding, and that forgiveness isn't involved when it comes to brothers. Then as the two head out to deal with more cursed spirits, both Naoya and Yuta are seen moving out to track Yuji down and kill him. Standing alone on a bridge, Yuji claps his hands together multiple times to draw out several cursed spirits. He leads them down into an underpass where Choso appears, killing most of them with a single shot from his piercing blood. The one remaining cursed spirit leaps towards Choso, but Yuji easily crushes it against the wall, exercising the cursed spirit. Having seen this, Choso was surprised by not only Yuji's power, but his agility and control of cursed energy, describing him as a demon god, even though he still hasn't fully recovered from the fights throughout Shibuya. Dude, like, literally is a demon god. He has the immortal king inside of him, brother Choso. You gotta realize that one, man. He calls Yuji impressive and addresses him as his little brother once again, which, I absolutely love. Yuji asks if he is going to continue doing that, and Choso answers that he will, adding that Yuji's father had stitches on his forehead, which is obviously implying that Yuji's father would have been Brain-kun, and like, oh my lord, I don't even want to talk about the crazy ass implications that this would throw into the story. Like, if it is true, it's just mental. Suddenly, Naoya appears above them and notes that he doesn't see Megami. As the two below notice him, Naoya asks if they plan to run. Hearing this though, just leaves Yuji slightly concerned, as he doesn't know why he would. To which Naoya reveals that Yuji's execution will now resume since Gojo is no longer around to protect him. Taking all this in, Yuji then remembers Ino's words about how there are many sorcerers Gojo has saved by protecting them from the higher-ups. Naoya tells Yuji that he doesn't care whether he lives or dies, since his business is with Megami, but states that he can't allow him to be moving around freely, so instead he'll incapacitate him and wait for Megami. Yuji asks what he wants with the sorcerer, to which Naoya replies that he plans for him to die, preferably after he writes something to help his cause. In that instant, Naoya leaps down, and although Yuji notices his technique, he is unable to avoid a punch to his face, which sends him sliding back. Before Yuji or Choso can move into land a hit of their own, Naoya quickly jumps away and tells Yuji that he is stronger than expected, and also wonders to himself about the identity of the random man with him. Naoya goes on to ask the two if he should increase his speed, but all three of them suddenly stop when they feel an overwhelming presence. Yuji initially thinks that it's Gojo, but then describes it as something far darker and creepier. He looks up and sees the big man himself, another of the extremely freaking rare special grade sorcerers, Yuta, who calmly prepares his katana while commenting on the fact that Yuji is not alone. As Yuta unsheaths his katana, Yuji asks who he is, and Choso seems to recognize his objective. Yuta jumps down from the balcony and destroys a portion of the wall on his way down, leaving both Choso and Yuji dumbfounded with the show of destruction. Slowly approaching them, he asks who the random is, to which Choso says to Yuji that Yuta must be his executioner. Naoya raises both his hands and assures Okkotsu that he is on his side. Having heard the name, Yuji recognizes him as the student mentioned by Megami, and like Gojo, he's also a special grade sorcerer of unfathomable power. Naoya introduces himself as Maki's cousin, saying that his objective is to kill Yuji as well. He assures Yuta that he won't interfere, but goes to ask for something in return. While they do this, Choso whispers to Yuji that he needs to run away since they still don't know the trick to Naoya's speed. Yuji asks if he will be okay holding him off, and as he releases blood manipulation, Choso tells Yuji that he has to focus on getting away from Yuta, pointing out that if he tries to fight someone of that strength, he will be killed no matter what. On the other side, Naoya asks Yuta to hold off on telling the higher-ups if he does kill Yuji, revealing that he is bait for someone he intends to meet. Back with the brothers, Choso whispers to Yuji that he will meet him at yesterday's spot, to which Yuji agrees. Then quickly after Yuta agrees to Naoya's plan, leaving Choso to him, everyone suddenly makes their move, with Yuta instantly sprinting past Choso towards Yuji. Choso attempts to slow him down with a piercing bloodshot, but Naoya manages to interrupt the attack. Yuji sprints away from Yuta, each being caught by surprise at the other's speed. As Choso wonders if they guessed his last move, he readies up his blood manipulation once again, but Naoya quickly strikes him before he can use it. Although he is unsure as to why Choso has the blood manipulation ability, Naoya remains unfazed by it, with the exception of piercing blood. He ends his explanation since the rest is obvious to him, telling Choso that it's now time for him to die. However, Choso's mood changes as he becomes serious, and he asks Naoya if he thinks he will leave alive after he just tried to murder his little brother. It's so funny, like Yuji's got like a crew of these jacked up ass brothers following him around, making sure that he doesn't die at the moment. I absolutely love it. Anyways, skipping away from the underpass, Yuji sprints toward a car resting on its side and leaps over it, with Yuta quickly running to the other side with his katana ready. However, Yuji grabs onto the car and transposes his direction, just barely dodging the attack. Yuta is left stunned since he thought he made contact, telling Yuji that he's just like Maki with his natural physical abilities. Yuji then punches a car towards Yuta, and since he knows that he can't win out in the open, tries to run towards a set of buildings. However, the car is suddenly thrown back above Yuji's head, stopping him instantly. Yuta asks Yuji if he is surprised since he doesn't look like the strong type. Yuji recognizes though the enormous amount of cursed energy pouring from him and realizes that the two are polar opposites. Which is, you know, like, hella cool. Queen versus king type thing. I'd love to see, like, more hyped feats from, like, Rika and Yuta in general, and Sukuna as well, and Yuji, just so we can pair them up in this massive battle to see who would come out on top when they're going, like, full tit against each other. Honestly, like, let me know what you guys think down in the description below. I've always loved the idea of these two just going freaking at it for, like, hours on end. Kind of like a one-piece battle of, like, Akainu versus Aokiji, where they fought for, like, 7 days on an island and changed the geography of that area. Like, I love that whole idea. Anyway, Yuta then reveals that while he has more cursed energy than Gojo, the teacher's 6 eyes allow him to reduce the cursed energy when he activates a technique to almost 0, allowing him to fight almost indefinitely. After Yuta says that he is done gassing up Big Gojo, he sprints towards Yuji, who while overwhelmed remembers Todo's words about an elite sorcerer's flow of cursed energy and it being difficult to read. Yuta then strikes and seems to make contact with the side of Yuji's head, but the student quickly recovers and recognizes that Yuta's body and katana are constantly surging with energy. He tells himself that the issue isn't his moves, but the fact that he is decisive with every strike and can reduce any damage he takes to a minimum. He remembers Nanami's final words to him and tells Yuta that he can't die yet. However, Yuta keeps on the offensive, and although Yuji dodges almost all of his strikes, one of them grazes his cheek and opens up a cut. He realizes that he needs to do something about Yuta's katana. He tells himself that he doesn't need to fear blades if he reinforces his body with cursed energy, but also can't overthink the situation, otherwise he'll end up dead. As he dashes towards a large SUV, he jumps inside the open window and spots a knife on the seat. He quickly picks it up before jumping out the opposite window and continuing on running. Yuta leaps over the hood and attacks him with his katana though, but Yuji uses the survival knife that he just picked up to block the strike. Yuta is taken aback at first and wonders where in the world did Yuji get a knife from, but quickly realizes that it must have been inside of the car. Yuji then lunges forward to close the gap and imbues the knife with cursed energy, trying to fight back. He remembers Gojo's words about not relying on cursed tools to the detriment of his own cursed energy's control. As the clash continues, Yuji knows that he hasn't learned how to fight this way, and then in a quick flash, Yuta tells him that he is focusing too much on his katana, before raising it above his head and kicking him in the stomach, sending him reeling back. Yuji can't believe the power of his kick, but even still, he quickly recovers. Yuta then follows up with an even more powerful strike that breaks Yuji's knife and cuts into his stomach. However, Yuji used the momentum of Yuta's strike to lodge his sword into the ground. He then follows up and pins it down and breaks the blade with his foot, which is like insane by the way. I know this isn't a curse tool or anything, but still it had Yuta's cursed energy flowing through it, and most likely protecting it in some kind of way. Even Yuta is surprised at first, but calms himself down while saying aloud that the fight was never going to be easy. Although Yuji's wound is deep, he tells himself that his vitals are intact and that both of them are now unarmed. But as he moves forward to strike, a large, ominous creature suddenly appears behind him and puts both of its hands around his head. Yuji is frozen in fear, and Yuta tells Rika that the two were just playing. Yuji, who was like obviously confused and doesn't know what to make of it or the name or what's going on, wonders if it's a Shikigami. As Yuji struggles, Yuta tells Rika to hold the student still. He then proceeds to calmly stab him in the chest with the broken katana. As blood starts to drip from Yuji's mouth, Yuta looks him in the eyes and apologizes. Inside of Yuji, Sukuna is completely caught off guard at first, but soon notices something, and puts on his malevolent smile. Back in the underpass, with another of the parallels, just gonna add in some more of my own brain cells right here, but I don't know why it's taken me this long to realize both parties in this arc are like parallels, or like opposites of each other, in the regards that Choso loves his siblings while Naoya despises his. Yuta has Rika and Yuji has Sukuna. I find it pretty interesting how Gege always seems to have a bunch of differing themes going on throughout each arc, literally all at the same time. Anyways, Choso struggles to keep up with the speed of Naoya, who uses his basic pitch version of projection sorcery to dart around and hit Choso with a hard punch to his guts. Reeling from the attack, Choso tells himself that he has no clue what kind of curse technique Naoya is using, and that he most likely won't reveal it since he is winning so easily. Naoya continues to overwhelm our boy with strikes, while Choso comments that convergence isn't a viable option since he can't even control the blood outside of his own body. Mr. Big Bad Zenin then compliments him on his strength while asking exactly who he is. Choso, in typical Big Bro fashion, confidently says that he is the oldest of 10 siblings before suddenly using the awed over, flowing red scales stack, changing the markings on his face and causing new ones to appear. By the way, the reason this technique literally shits all over Kamo's new one is because Big Choso has improved on the basic version and pretty much made his own, kind of like what other characters do with barriers and their own abilities throughout the, world. After Choso says that he's the oldest of the 10 siblings, Naoya clarifies that he's asking about his curse technique and toughness, suddenly disappearing from Choso's view. Choso notices a blur beside him though, and quickly turns to face the incredibly fast Naoya, who realizes that Choso has focused flowing red scale in the muscle of his eyes to raise their sharpness so that he can adjust to his speed. However, Naoya easily counters Choso's counter, striking him in the stomach and saying that he always assumes someone will counter him first. As Choso recovers from the strike, blood suddenly begins to pour from an open wound in his chest. Naoya reveals that he decided to use a knife to effect his blood manipulation, asking him how long he can continue to fight in that condition. Oh boy, Naoya kinda messed up here with just one damn thing. He disrespected his younger siblings and doesn't even truly realize what Choso is as well. I can't even believe that at this point. Choso looks like a pale zombie. Anyway, Choso commends his plan when Naoya continues talking about how using hidden weapons isn't considered cool. He adds that many do carry them around and are often dependent on them, saying that the way in which his older brothers show off their weapons is pathetic, and how he was always disgusted at the fact they feared Toji. Choso mentions Naoya's dislike for his brothers, and Naoya says that the older brothers who are weaker than their younger brothers should just hang themselves and die, since they are pointless. Which is so freaking wild, man. This guy's mind is so damn broken at this point. He needs help, man. Someone help him. Choso replies that Naoya may be the way he is now because of his brothers and the way they treated him, to which Naoya scoffs at Choso's cliche reasoning. Big Bro Choso continues by saying that regardless of their strength, older brothers are role models and give their younger brothers the chance to avoid the mistakes that they make themselves or to follow behind them if they go down the right path. He asks Naoya to consider the possibility that he is strong only because his older brothers are weak. Choso then reveals that he is strong because he had no one older to guide him, forcing him to face his own mistakes and continue walking ahead of his younger brothers. As the blood from Choso's wound pools at his feet and begins to billow away from him, Naoya backs up and wonders how can he survive after so much blood loss. It's then finally explained that death paintings have blood mixed from cursed spirits and humans, allowing them to not die from blood loss since they can convert cursed energy back into blood. Choso then raises a wall of blood, which causes Naoya to lose sight of him. However, a slower, slicing exorcism attack comes shooting out of the blood, which Naoya easily ducks below, and comes to the conclusion that Choso is finally dying from the blood loss. However, Choso suddenly appears several feet to the left of Mr. Misogyny and fires a piercing blood shot, which he barely dodges, but quickly understands that he can't make contact with. With the wall of blood still flowing toward him, Naoya barely blocks a kick from Choso and finds that some of the blood has actually stained his Akama. He wonders if the blood now covering him is also affecting his movement. Opposite him, and standing tall, Choso prepares to fire another piercing blood shot as blood hovers around him, almost mimicking the Wing King ability that Iso had possessed. He tells Naoya that he knows what comes next and that now it's checkmate. Naoya remains confident and tells himself that he can still move despite the binding effect. He tells Choso to go ahead and fire, but as he dashes towards him, he has a moment of hesitation where he wonders why Choso isn't releasing the attack. As then explained in a typical cutaway anime manga style, that the move Choso would use was his own. So you all know a fuck off ability is about to go off, created after he honed his technique for 150 years. Choso then releases a supernova attack, causing a large orb of blood to shoot out in several directions and strike all over the entirety of Naoya's body, leaving him utterly finished. Choso apologizes and says that he lost because he didn't love his brothers. However, behind Choso, Yuta suddenly appears dragging an unconscious Yuji by his hoodie. Choso tries to react, but Yuta effortlessly strikes him in the side of the face, which in turn knocks him straight to the ground. As Naoya looks up, Yuta says in what feels like a damn degrading tone that he seems to be hurt. Like, oh, you okay down there, little Naoya man? You seem a little bit hurt. As Yuta looks down on the wounded Naota, the latter glares back at him before vomiting up blood. He worries that Choso's blood manipulation poisoned him, but assures himself that it isn't the effect of a curse technique. He then realizes that Choso must be a full-on curse because of how much blood he used. Then guesses that his own body is rejecting the non-human blood. Yuta, still standing above him, offers to heal him with his reverse curse technique if he tells his superiors that Yuji is dead.